close it right up. 8 years later. But that's not the ironic part. Here's the ironic part. They close that up. They send the prisoners down to the Suffolk County Jail. All right? And then this building that is uninhabitable for human beings is turned into the Liberty Hotel. Well, weird. But like I say, I like the weird. Anyway, so take a look at that brick building to your left with the atrium that goes about halfway across. That is the Edwin Land Laboratory. Edwin Land is the man who created the Polaroid Land camera and also Polaroid sunglasses. He had 1,500 patents to his credit. Yeah, probably the most prolific inventor of his day. Alrighty, so now that looks all really lovely over there, doesn't it? Now, over there, when I was their age, that was full of gas refineries, oil refineries, factories that would spew all sorts of chemicals right here into the river. It essentially polluted the river, polluted East Cambridge. The EPA came in, wiped it out. Cleaned up this river today. This is the cleanest urban river in the United States. And over there, the number one industry today is not chemicals, but technology. So, I mean, that is like the place to live. If you saw pictures of that back in the 60s and 70s, you'd be going, you wouldn't even go on this river, you'd be like, ugh. So, now, you see that gray and white building off in the distance with the holes up in the roof, the square holes? That's the north bank of the Charles River. Yeah. So that means everything from the bank to that building is all made land. From Charlestown to Harvard University. All of that is made land. In fact, where that building is where Paul Revere started his ride. And the British, that's where they landed that same night. They left Boston Common, put their boats in the Charles River right off the Common, and then rowed across the Charles River over there to Leechmere Point, got out there and marched out to Concord and Lexington. All right, so here comes the next one. See, these are weird little stories. They're all true in there. Bing, bing, bing. But this one's a little longer. So I told you about the Back Bay, right? And I told you all about the 60-foot spruce trees and all of that. All right. So, see the dam? That's where the Science Museum is. This was all a dam at one time, and in 1949, 1951, they put the Science Museum here. That lock, that dam, were used for 70 years to control the Charles River, to keep the Charles River at the same height all year long, so that a disaster wouldn't take place. What was the disaster? Well, about the turn of the century, they started looking, as the contractors started looking at the buildings that were first put in the Back Bay, the ones on Arlington Street, the ones that were finished in 1861. And they found out that the buildings were starting to tip and crack. That shouldn't happen. So what they did was they went to investigate. They jacked up some of the buildings. When they did, they went under and they saw that those trees that were supposed to be under the water table weren't. Yeah. Oh, most of them were under the water table, but the tops were out front, and so they were starting to rot. Had to do something about that. They had to figure out what it was that was causing that. The Charles River. Why was it causing that? Because this was an estuary, and the tide would come in. It would go 4 miles up the river to Alston. When the tide came in, the water table went up. When the tide went out, the water table dropped precipitously. I've got pictures from over there, the turn of the century, with guys doing clam digging over there. That's how low the Charles River was. So, they put in the dam, they put in the lock, they put in the steel doors to regulate the Charles River for the next 70 years, to keep the Charles River at the same height all year long. That way, the water table would stay consistent in the back bay, and a disaster would not take place, which would have been all of those buildings just crumbling to the ground, or sinking, or tipping over. Right. So, anyway, what happened to the buildings with the pilings that were rotting? They capped them with iron. They put iron caps, much like a crown. They put them on top of the trees, cemented them on there, set the house back down, and they've been up ever since. Okay, we've got a family outing coming up on your left, so if you get your cameras ready, here we go. They're all going to the lake. Look at this. Talk about a brood.
That's a lot of ducks.
You want to hear something weird about those geese? The parents don't fly anymore. Yeah, the parents mate for life. And the parents, when the chicks are born, what happens is when they get to be about that age, and it's usually around June, May into June, mostly June, they lose their flying feathers, they molt, and they stay unable to fly until the children are old enough to fly, like around the end of August, middle of August, and they teach them to fly so they can head south. It's a weird little story, didn't know that. But anyway, so you're back in the lower basin of the Charles River. Alrighty. Now, you've got Charlestown is up here on the left. You can see the Bunker Hill Monument. What you may not know is when the Puritans first came here, like the Pilgrims 10 years earlier, what they did was the Pilgrims actually landed on Cape Cod, and they were going to go around the elbow of the Cape to New York, where the Dutch had already settled. But they didn't want to do that. They wanted to stay up in the area where they were, where they had the contract. So they went up around the top of the Cape and eventually landed in Plymouth. A similar thing happened to the Puritans. The Puritans came here, but they didn't land here in Boston. Hands, thank you. So they didn't land here in Boston. They actually landed north of Boston. Yep. And when they came over, unlike the Pilgrims, they had 11 ships, the lead ship being the Arabella. And when they got here, they landed in that little settlement, because everybody thinks like the Puritans and the Pilgrims were the first. It was already a settlement, but it didn't have a name. So when they landed at the settlement, they gave it its first name. They called it Salem. And they named it after what they had to do to their ships in order to get here. So, really? You laughed at that? I have a card here with my therapist's name on it, and he had said that anybody who laughs at that joke, 9 o'clock Monday morning, his office, I'll give you the card later. No, I'm teasing. So, but they really did. They came down from Salem, and everywhere they went, it was either great farmland and no water, or great water and no farmland, until they came down to here. Here comes our captain. Watch this. This is way harder than he makes it look. Nice, huh? Like you're going up your driveway. How about a nice hand for our captain? All right, get ready to release the quacking. Doody-doody-doo. Doody-doo-doo. Jenga!
Quack, quack!
And Arthur Fiddler. Jenga!
Quack, quack!
Well done. If you've seen The Equalizer with Denzel Washington, or you've seen The Town with Ben Affleck, this red and white building over here is where Ben Affleck gets arrested in The Town, and that is where the Russian and the Irish mob get into their gunfight in The Equalizer. That's Boston Sand and Gravel. See, so much movie lore. Ah, thank you. Why, is there something flying? Oh, sorry. You ready? Here we go. Jenga!
Quack, quack!
Well done. You see how I did that? Do it a little bit in front and then. Timing is everything. So, let me tell you about these ducks. These ducks are not DUCKs. They're DUKWs. Yeah, that's duckwa. Yeah, we don't call it that. So, anyway, DUCK, not what these are. DUKW, yes, what they are. So, these are not original ducks. The original ducks too, and when we started our company way back 30 years ago, had original ducks, but they just became way too difficult to maintain and way too expensive to maintain because nobody made them anymore. All right, so we sold them. We bought these. These cost $500,000, so you can only imagine how expensive it was to maintain the other ducks. So anyway, these are replicas, and DUKW is a code given to these by the military in 1942. All right, the D stands for 1942. Why? Because 1942 was the 4th year of World War II. D is the 4th letter of the alphabet. D stands for 1942. The U is for a utility vehicle. It can go on water, it can go on land. It can take personnel, it can take cargo. All right, take the K. Turn the K like that, front wheel drive. That's what it looks like under the hood. Oh no, we're too far from them, but thank you, appreciate that. All right, we'll just wave, no sense. There we go. So, the other, the W, there are 2 of them, one over there, one over there. Pretend that's a W. The dual axle sits on the W's, and that's what propels us all over Boston. All right? So, these are replicas of military vehicles, and because they are, I'm going to ask, is there anybody on board our duck today who is either a veteran or currently serving in the military? Do I have anybody? No? Well, I know he is. We did this every single time. Well, here's why I ask. You see the canopy? Everybody always asks, how do you sign the canopy? You get to sign the canopy if you are a veteran or currently serving in the military. Those who sign our canopy honor us, and in turn we honor them by displaying their names to all of our guests. Had anybody been a member of the military or a veteran, I would have offered you the opportunity to sign our canopy. And so, do you? Alrighty. Take good pictures. There's a lot of good names up there. Alright? Take a look to your left. Bunker Hill. That monument is on Breeds Hill. Let me get that out of the way first. Anybody here from Chicago? No? Okay. That's alright. Don't worry. Here we go. So, why did we call it the Battle of Bunker Hill when it took place on Breeds Hill? Because Bunker Hill is not a hill. It's kind of like a ridge. And all of Bunker Hill was owned by the Bunker family at one time till about 15 years before the battle. They cut the property in half, sold it to the other half to the Breed family. So the Breed family lived here, Archie and Edith lived over here. Alright? Then, nobody called it Breeds Hill for the same reason that nobody calls the Sears Tower the Willis Tower. Yeah, in Chicago, the Sears Tower, it's been the Willis Tower for 2 times longer than it's been the Sears Tower. I know. Boston Garden is right there. It's not Boston Garden. It hasn't been Boston Garden since 1996. It's the TD Bank North Garden. We're not going to call it that. Your tongue would snap off its rolling. So, we call it the Garden or the Boston Garden. Same thing, all right? So, that gets out of the way first. Second, why is there a monument up there? Well, why shouldn't there be a monument up there? They fought a battle. Yes, they did. But we paid for the monument. 220 feet tall. Quincy granite, Solomon Willard. We didn't win that battle. What? Yeah, I lived here in Boston all my life, went to school here in Boston all my life. We didn't win that battle and we never found out about it. I had cousins who lived in Charlestown. We'd go over there for the parade, the fireworks, the carnival, the whole 9 yards. Yeah, we didn't win. Okay, the British won. Why don't the British celebrate the Battle of Bunker Hill? Why not? Because the British, well, they won, but it's what's known as a Pyrrhic victory. What's a Pyrrhic victory? New York fans, here we go. Here's what Pyrrhic victories are. First game of the last NFL season. The Bills and the Jets play one another. Aaron Rodgers' first game. 5 snaps. First 4 snaps were Aaron Rodgers snapping the football. The last snap was his Achilles tendon going up into his knee. So, all right. The Jets won that game, but they lost Aaron Rodgers for the season. Pyrrhic victory. They lost more than they won. Same thing with the British. They sent 2,200 men over. They lost 1,154. How many did the colonists lose? 421.
And we lost?
And they lost exactly. Do you know why they lost? They ran out of ammunition. And so, the British had made 2 parries up the hill. They were rebuffed by the colonists both times, very handily. And on the 3rd time, they ran out of ammunition and the British overran them. And here's the thing. If you take this next thing into consideration, you really understand this. The British lost 1/3 of all their officers that they lost in the 8 years of the American Revolution at Bunker Hill, the first major battle of the Revolution. Why? Because the colonists knew they were low on ammunition, and the order was not, don't shoot until you see the whites of their eyes. It was, shoot the best dressed. If you shot the best dressed, you were shooting an officer. That would cause chaos in the ranks. That's number 1. Number 2, it would take 2 to 3 soldiers to take that body off the field of battle. So, chaos reigned. Nathaniel Greene said of that battle, I would have liked to have sold the British another hill for the same price they paid for Bunker Hill. Yeah, technically, it's a loss, but you know what? The colonists proved that they could go toe-to-toe with the best trained army in the world, and they would have won had they not run out of ammunition. So, there you go. Right there, the mill pond. That's this. We just got off of it. Now, today it is the Bullfinch Triangle, but back in the 1700s, that was the swimming hole of Boston. And on hot summer days when all the young men of Boston were done with their chores, they'd go down there to do some skinny dipping. Among them, Benjamin Franklin. He thought swimming was the best exercise you could ever get. And who's going to argue with Benjamin Franklin? He's dead. So, Benjamin Franklin loved swimming so much, today he is enshrined in the Swimmers Hall of Fame.
There's a blimp.
Katie Ledecky, Michael Phelps, Benjamin Franklin. Why? Because Benjamin Franklin invented swim fins. And they didn't go on your feet. They went on your hands. They were made out of wood. They were about this thick. You could drill holes in them, put the leather ties through them, and they look like flat wooden pot holders that went with the shape of your hand. And that is how you propelled yourselves. Crazy, but true. Look it up. When I heard that the first time, I went, what? And I looked it up. I went, oh my God, he really did that. So, how did they fill in the mill pond? The Beacon Incline. Yeah, it's not a hill, it's an incline. Why? Because they took 60 feet off of Beacon Hill, trucked it down here, brought it down there, filled in the mill pond, giving us about 10 acres more land. Yeah. Everybody always says it's so cool you put your state house right up on top of the hill so everybody can see it. No, we didn't. We put it in front of the hill. It was here. The hill was here. And then 21 years, they excavated it, brought it down there. You want to hear a weird story? Take a look to your left. Right there, that building is an Art Deco building, shown to you by Art Deco. Oh. And on that site is where Alexander Graham Bell invented the telephone. Do you know why he invented the telephone? Because his wife was deaf. So was his mother-in-law. He was trying to make a hearing device that he could communicate. He worked with the hearing impaired right up this street in Pemberton Square. And do you realize that if Alexander Graham Bell had not invented the telephone, there would be no Dunkin' Donuts? Go on. Alexander Graham Bell invents the telephone, 1875, makes $1 gazillion. Who else made $1 gazillion? Thomas Watson, his assistant. What did Watson do with his share of the money? He built the Fort River Shipyard in Quincy, Massachusetts. That becomes one of the great shipyards in the history of the United States. The Yorktown, the Lexington, the Massachusetts, the New Jersey, all built down there, among the other ships. All right? And Watson died before World War II, so he didn't get to realize any of the money that he invested. Who did? The Rosenberg brothers. Who are they? Well, they ran a canteen truck down to the Fort River Shipyard every lunch break, breakfast break, supper break, coffee break, selling coffee, donuts, sandwiches, pastries, the whole 9 yards. Their best customers were the secretaries. They loved their coffee breaks. And one day, the lead secretary got a hold of William Rosenberg and thanked him for that. And he says, you know, our girls, they love they love these coffee breaks. They love your coffee. But you know what they love more than your coffee? They love Dunkin' Donuts in their coffee. Yeah, that was the line that inspired William Rosenberg to call his company Dunkin' Donuts. No Alexander Graham Bell, no phone, no Watson, no shipyard, no secretaries, no Rosenbergs, no Dunkin' Donuts. Yep. Give a mouse a cookie. So, anyway, take a look over here to your left. You see this little park right here? There are two statues, one seated, one standing. Both of them are James Michael Curley. James Michael Curley was governor of Massachusetts. He was a congressman from Massachusetts. He was a four-term mayor of Boston. He was known as the Rascal King by his detractors, but by those who voted for him, he was known as the mayor of the people. He died in 1958, and I was at his funeral. Yeah, I was just a little guy. My sister was about 2 months old. Why were we there? Because my grandfather was his chauffeur. So, like weird stories like that. Coming on up here to the intersection of the Boston Massacre. Okay? I told you that this took place March 5th, 1770, right here in this intersection. Do not be fooled by the paving bricks that form the circle in front of the State House. That is not where the massacre took place. Where did it take place? It took place there, in the center of the street. So I am old enough to remember when that circle of paving bricks was in the middle of the intersection, and on this corner, and over there. Well, which one is it, Boston? Well, the reason they moved those two circles to there is because more people were killed by cars trying to take pictures of the stupid little circle than were killed in the massacre. That balcony, that is where the Declaration of Independence gets read every 4th of July, with the exception of one. 1976, the bicentennial. Why didn't it get read then? Well, it didn't get read then on the day because Queen Elizabeth came here to read it. And she stood up there and she read the Declaration of Independence, and when she was done, she looked out over the Declaration and said to the crowd, I wonder what Sam Adams and Paul Revere would think of me reading this document. And then she paused and smiled and said, I think they would have been pleased. Right up there, you can see a gray building way up the top of the street. That is where Benjamin Franklin was born. All right, not in that building, on that site. Okay? So, by the way, Free Guy people, right here is the opening scene to the movie. All the way down that street, that is where Benjamin Button goes and he doesn't dive into the convertible here. He does that in the back bay. But this is where the police blow him up. It's a computer game for those of you who didn't see it. So just, I don't want you to think it's like violence in it. Well, it does. So, but it's not real violence. So, you ready to hear one of the weirdest stories you're ever going to hear? Here it comes. Benjamin Franklin. Benjamin Franklin's mother was born out on Nantucket. She was born Abiah Folger. Her father was Peter, and she lived out there till she was 21. When she turned 21, she was still unmarried, God forbid. So she asked her father if she could move to Boston and live with her married sister and her sister's husband. The father said, go right ahead. So she moves here to Boston. She meets Josiah Franklin. Josiah Franklin is a widower with 7 children. Oh no, it gets better. They get married, and they have 10 more, including Benjamin Franklin. Now, what's so weird about that? Nothing really, okay? But what is weird about it is this. Hang on one sec. Oh, you got it? Okay. You're doing well here. You and Captain Runamuck, I'll tell you. And like I say, all of this free guy territory, all filmed right in here. So, what's so weird about that story? Abaya Franklin, Nee Folger, she and Benjamin Franklin are ancestors to the Folger Coffee Company. Absolutely the truth. The CEO who died in 1980, Peter Folger, was named for her father.
Hey, there's a duck ahead.
Crazy stuff. I love crazy stuff. Want more crazy stuff? See that building right there with the balconies? That building used to go over and touch this building right here. Walt Whitman called that the greatest example of architecture in the world, and they tore out 60% of it to put a highway through here.
Oh.
Anyway, we're coming back here to our duck stop, and as we do, I'm going to ask that you all please stay seated till the captain and I get off the duck. We have to let the ladder down and make sure that you get down safely. So that's number one. Number two, see this guy right here? Right on time. How about a nice hand for our captain? He is awesome. And from me to you, let me say thank you for coming into Boston Duck Tours. I hope you had a good time. I hope you heard some weird stories that you didn't expect to hear and didn't know. That's always happy. And if I can leave you with one last word of wisdom, it would be this. Nanga!
Quack,
Well, we'll see you down the bottom of the hill. The bottom of the hill. The bottom of the stairs.